in that way anyway because they want to play at a faster pace anyway. I know Duke had always practiced with 30 seconds on their shot clock when they started playing a little bit faster when they got in their one and done era. But yeah, I think this is going to be a really good rule change. And like I said, this is something that, talking about November 6th, you're going to see Carolina struggle with it as much as any team in the country. But by February and March, the teams that know how to run their offense in a 20-second time clip are probably going to be the teams that we're looking at when we pencil in our brackets as Final Four contenders.
Well, I think that it will have an effect on Carolina, but I feel like it will affect the opponents a little bit more. Like that first game, I really do feel like it'll affect Notre Dame a little bit more because, in the past, when we get offensive rebounds, most of the time, if our guys are in a good position, you're taught to go straight back up. Now, we know from our time watching Kennedy Meeks, Kennedy liked to put the ball on the floor every single time before going back up. But still, for the most part, it seems like Roy Williams has always had them in that, once you get that offensive rebound, it's a quick thinking mindset. You're looking for the next chance to score. It's not, let me bat, it's not, let's get a rebound, back it out to the timeline and reset completely. So I think that Carolina won't struggle with it as much. A team like Virginia, team like Texas Tech that we saw this past year, those teams that really want to slow the pace of the game down, this will affect them because they're going to have to learn, okay, if you get an offensive rebound, by the time you get that ball back out to the timeline, it's going to probably be about 18, 17 seconds, and you got to get your offense going a lot quicker than when you get an offensive rebound, toss it back out, and it's 28 or 27 seconds. So for Carolina, I feel like it won't affect them as much, but you're right, it still will affect them because here's the thing now, late in games, you won't be able to just get an offensive rebound, toss it back out, and control the clock. Not as easily. You can, but it doesn't drain as much time off the clock. So one thing that it's going to do, it's going to make offensive rebounding, especially in late game situations, even more important.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to string together not only one offensive rebound if you miss, you got to string together 2 or 3 in order to drain that time off the clock. So I think that could definitely be one of the more interesting perspectives is late game situations for Carolina. But I think for the most part, if we're talking about early in games, I feel like Carolina for the most part has that mindset of if we get an offensive rebound, let's look to go back up or look for a good shot as quick as possible.
Yeah. Some other rules really quickly that the NCAA approved. Coaches can now call live ball timeouts in the final 2 minutes of the second half or in overtime.
That's actually pretty big, though. Would you not agree?
For us, not really.
So now, okay, this is my question, and this is where I think that it could potentially be big. What happens if there's a tie-up on the floor and your player has the ball? Can you be, or as a coach, are you allowed to be right in the ref's ear and call it, or no? It has to be called by the player on the floor.
That's a player timeout kind of thing.
Okay.
A lot of times anyway, when you see the players that would call timeout, the coaches kind of already signaled them to call the timeout.
Right.
So it's really just going to be that communication where the coach can now just call for the timeout exclusively to the ref and not the player. And another one that I kind of like is they're going to start assessing technical fouls for bad language used towards the ref, kind of from the players.
Oof. And
this is good just because they need to eliminate the amount of talking the players do to the officials during the game.
Can that become an NBA rule, by the way? Like, I don't think college basketball needs this rule that as much. I know there's some complaining, but it's very rare that you see guys that will complain the entire time. I think, I mean, maybe it's just me. I mean, are you seeing more, like, you might be seeing it somewhere that I'm not. I just haven't seen a lot of guys that at the college level really get boisterous over and over again during the course of a game.
You're never going to see it from our guys. Other programs, yes. And a lot of it, they get it from their coaches. Syracuse,
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good point.
Duke, Izzo with Michigan State. And I just think, it's not a good example for the kids coming up in the game. You're not supposed to talk to an official in any kind of way. Really, the only person supposed to ever talk to the official is the captain, which is normally your point guard. Is whoever's, and now it's just got out of hand at really all levels. You see it in high school, you see it in AAU ball, and now in college, and the NBA is the worst. I mean, Draymond Green argues the whole day with the officials and wonders why he gets teed up every other night. Well, this is why.
Oh, if they had this rule in the NBA, he would never play a game in the NBA. Exactly. He wouldn't play back-to-back games. He'd be suspended each time.
So hopefully this just eliminates the amount of – and look, we understand there are times the refs screw it up. But it's also a really hard job to do, so they're going to mess up. They're human beings, and we just need to be a little bit more acceptive of that and just talk. I have no problem with you arguing a call or questioning a call, but you can do it without calling him a cuss word or calling him a racist slur or calling him this. Just go about it more professionally, and that's what the rule is going to do. And, for us, directly for Carolina basketball, not a problem. This has never been a problem since Dean Smith took over the program. You
know better.
Just one of the things about us you don't do. So we'll go ahead and we'll a couple things, and we'll wrap this thing up. We talked a couple episodes ago about Seventh Woods announcing his decision to transfer the program. Of course, that was kind of influenced by the recruiting of Cole Anthony and then Anthony Harris. Kind of makes sense. He has announced he is transferring to the University of South Carolina, which makes a lot of sense. He's a Columbia kid. In his initial recruitment, South Carolina was one of the schools he listed in his final 5 or 3, whatever, before he announced he was coming to Carolina. Really happy for Seventh Woods. He'll have to sit a year, play a year. He's already enrolled in school there, so hopefully it works out the best for him. I don't know if chances are we probably won't play them unless they decide to schedule a home and home.
Or if they make the tournament, which is possible. Frank Martin,
if
good
they were
coach.
to make the tournament, that would be a potential matchup to have the two Tar Heel or two Carolina teams play each other in this. That would be good for TV. And they did make the Final Four last time they made the tournament, so they kind of have that kind of thing about them. But happy for Seventh Woods. Thank you for what he did while he was in Chapel Hill, and wish him the best of luck while he's in Columbia. And lastly, Jalen Wilson announced yesterday his. Where he's going to play basketball this upcoming year after he, of course, decommitted from Michigan after John Beilein left for the NBA. He's going to Kansas. Not really a shock. It was we kind of thought that anyway. He wasn't coming to Carolina. It was the last school he visited. That kind of didn't work out into our favor either. So that's where he's going. Do need to address, though, we had a fan on social media attack his decision to go to Kansas. We can't stress enough on this podcast, on Twitter, if you're going to tweet at a recruit, don't tweet the kind of stuff that, it got ugly. His father responded to him. It's not a good look for us. And in today's world, that plays into these kids' decisions because, just because he wants to go play at Kansas doesn't make him a piece of crap. And, he called him racial slurs and hoped injury upon this young man. And that's just not what we're about. He's going to Kansas. That's another great program, and he's going to succeed there. And I don't think Kansas people would be tweeting at him like that if he would have came to Carolina. So we just need to keep that in mind when these kids, commit to other schools, that it's okay. That's an 18-year-old kid, and let's not get out of shape about that. So is there anything else you want to add to this podcast before we sign off for today?
Just on that, pathetic. This is probably someone that's got a wife, got kids, and what kind of example are you setting? That's an absolute joke. Kid made a decision. No one should be angry about that, especially not to that point. It's sad that things have to come to that at this point where, if they don't commit to your school, you're going to go out and pretty much try to tear them down personally. There is a simple solution. Just don't tweet at recruits ever. What's the point? No matter what you do, you're not influencing this person's decision. It's just not. I don't care what you think in your mind. You're not influencing their decision. And especially after they make their decision, to come out and say something like that, I'm sure that changed his mind right on the spot and said, you know what? I think I'm going to go play for Carolina now because this guy seems so passionate about what he just put on my timeline. Yeah, that is an absolute joke. It makes me sick to see people actually think that that's okay to send to somebody. I wish him the best of luck at Kansas. And honestly, when we look, let's focus on his actual decision. I understand that there are some people that are, not frustrated, but they're a little concerned with the fact that he didn't commit to us. Look, I think we're in perfectly fine shape. I have no issue with what this class looks like right now. I think that this coaching staff did a phenomenal job. I'm happy with every single member of this class, and I think that this Tar Heel team in 2019-20 is set up for a really good season, which is a much better spot than we were sitting at earlier, just a couple of months ago. Yeah. I remember we were sitting on this podcast pretty much saying to ourselves, I don't know what we're going to do. I told you after they landed Cole Anthony, Anthony Harris, you get the 2 transfers. Right.
And all that happened in 2 weeks.
Right.
Pretty much. That if I had to pick a team to win the ACC right now, I'd pick Carolina.
Right.
Not from a bias standpoint, just you look at how much Virginia lost.
Right.
You look what Duke does. It hasn't worked for them in a decade in terms of winning the conference.
And that team's not going to be as good as they were last year. It's just not going to happen.
It's not like we were in dire need of another player. It would have been great to add.
Had 5 guys that were committed in this class. 3 of them were freshmen, and 2 of them are transfers, which are becoming more and more important in the game of college basketball.
So
I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the class. Understand
fine.
It.
We'll just go get someone else for the 2020 class, and it'll be another great player and all that. So just guys, we got to be better as fans. I know it gets frustrating when we miss out on recruits. We've been doing it for a decade with certain guys, but it doesn't give us the right to go on there, call them names. It's not what we're about. That's what I try to remember. It's not, we represent the brand just as much as the guys wearing the jersey sometimes with what we tweet and what we say. So,
well, remember also it's only one person. That's not everybody in the fan base. Most people in the fan base that I saw were wishing him well. I think most people in the fan base just understand, look, that's part of it. It's just kind of how it goes sometimes. Right. That's the nature of the game. So,
anything else? Are we done?
No, I think I think we're ready to roll. I'll tell you what, though, we keep talking about this. I am getting more and more excited for this upcoming college basketball season. I think this team is really rounding out to look like a true contender. I I don't know. We'll have to wait until we get into the previews and everything like that.
Yeah. This is definitely going to be a team that. And look, I'll go ahead and say it right here in the middle of June. They're going to lose a couple games in November and December they maybe, quote-unquote, shouldn't lose.
Yeah, that battle for Atlantis is looking a little rough.
I think when it gets to March and we pack up for Greensboro to go to the ACC tournament and we sit there on Selection Sunday and we get our bracket, we're going to be one of those teams that everyone's be like, Carolina might be the team that kind of gets to the Final Four, which is in Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta.
Should be. I'm trying to rotate my new stadiums. Yeah, I think it is Atlanta.
It goes to Atlanta this year and can compete to cut down the nets. I'm with you. I'm always jacked up for Carolina basketball, but I think this team, we saw some highlights from Justin Pierce the other day, just dominating in a pickup game. I know it's pickup.
It's my guy Jacob Turner's favorite player.
But this kid was dominating. We've seen Christian Kelly kind of been very open that he's working hard, even harder on his game to get ready because he is coming to play for Carolina.
Yeah, man, he only averaged 20.3 points a game last year, so it's not like he's bringing much to the table, right?
The good thing that comes out of when you get your ass kicked in the tournament is it normally fuels your team going the next year, and you've got a lot of guys on the roster now that haven't done anything. Garrison Brooks has not done anything in the tournament. You've made the round of 32 in the Sweet 16 at Carolina. That's nothing. So we got a lot of guys that are hungry that want to get to a Final Four. Brandon Robinson, who's going to have a big role. This is his final go. Won a national title, but was a glorified role player, if that, on that 17 national championship team in the title run. So that's the only thing that good to come out of what happens against Auburn is it fuels the guy for next year, and we all know they're going to put in the work, and we know the coaching staff's going to have these guys ready to go. So I'm with you, though. Ready to get basketball season going. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. We are going to be back normally on a weekly basis now during the summer as vacation